Oh, is it good to be here in New York City, USA? Welcome into the UFC 281 betting preview show presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Jon Anik alongside a whole lot of star power today. I'm a little bit intimidated. UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier, the future UFC Hall of Famer and former bantamweight queen Holly Holm, and of course the reigning, defending, undisputed UFC bantamweight champion, the only New Yorker on the panel, by the way, the Funk Master, Aljamain Sterling. Letting the lettuce fly today. You're looking good, champ.
Oh man, does it look good?
I think it looks good. I mean.
So.
When you the champ, you can let your hair look like that. You know, it don't matter what you do. You the champ.
All right, well, I don't have to tell you guys that UFC 281 is an absolute monster. We're live on pay-per-view Saturday night, and we're going to get into the three top fights for you here today. We're going to start with a feature bout in the lightweight division and then eventually work our way to this main event, of course, for the undisputed middleweight championship between Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira. But let us begin with this feature bout. At 155 pounds, former world title challengers Dustin Poirier taking on Michael Chandler right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Poirier about a 2-1 favorite. Minus 210, the comeback on Michael Chandler, plus 180. You sat down with these two gentlemen. You know them exceedingly well. There is heat and some definite friction in the underbelly to this fight.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of heat when it comes to these two fighters, but the reality is both are extremely confident that they will get the job done. Michael Chandler has been a guy that is willing to fight with his ego at times, even though there are clearer paths to victory for him. Speaking of Dustin Poirier today, he told me, Holly Holm, he said, if Michael Chandler fights me with his ego, he does not see the final bell. I'm not sure Michael Chandler sees the second round bell if he fights me as he did Justin Gaethje. These dudes want to fight each other bad, and Dustin Poirier has some evil intentions for him.
I definitely think that some people, they fight better with emotion. Some people can let their emotions get the better of them, and some of them get in there, and with their emotions, they kind of put it out there, and they use that to kind of fuel them. So I guess it's just going to see how it goes.
Aljo, when you were going into the rematch with Petr Yan, I felt like that was an emotional fight, and I felt like there was just a lot on your shoulders going into that fight. Obviously, you emerged with flying colors. You're grinning ear to ear, but when there is heat on a fight and there is emotion, is it different in the lead-up or no?
Yeah, there is, but I think it's all about how you channel that when it comes down to just focusing on the task at hand, which is getting the job done, getting the win. You want to make sure that you do all the things that you did in the training camp. But for me, I just like to build it up a little bit to give it a little extra spice, and I think that's what these guys are going to give us. And I think there is a little bit of bad blood under there, but I think at the end of the day, they respect each other and their skill set and the dangers that both guys possess to ending that fight early. And I agree with Poirier. I think if Chandler fights with his ego, it could be a very short night for him. And Poirier's left hand, man, that lefty that he throws right down the pipe, that's a tough one.
The rhythm. He talked about his rhythm. He goes, bro, they don't expect the rhythm. It's not speed with Dustin Poirier. He's not a fast guy. Dustin doesn't throw quick punches, but everything finds its target because he's got great timing. And he just talks about the rhythm of his boxing, his movement, his footwork is what's going to give Michael Chandler problems. But Michael Chandler is as put together an athlete as you'll find in the UFC, and he will take that same approach to the fight on Saturday night.
You're right, though, to highlight Dustin Poirier's boxing fundamentals, some of the best in the UFC. Holly, in terms of this fight from a betting perspective, we have seen some money come in on Dustin Poirier. I know we were talking in our pre-show meeting that this line is getting wider. What kind of chance do you give Michael Chandler in that plus 180 range?
I do think that this is going to be the fight of the night.
All right.
I'm confident this is going to be the fight of the night.
She's sitting the fence a little bit.
She's smart. She's smart. She knows better than to pick somebody.
Some people have criticized Michael Chandler for prioritizing entertainment, but obviously that has lined his bankroll. It has led to championship opportunities. What do you think about the price and ultimately Chandler's chances as an increasingly bigger underdog as we get closer to fight night?
I mean, Chandler almost became a UFC champion in his fight with Oliveira. I don't see why he can't do this again and get this guy out of there and find himself in another number one contender fight, which this is probably that. So there's probably a good chance for him. Whoever wins this is probably going to fight for the belt again, possibly. Or maybe they're going to be next in line. But I like the odds. Chandler is a puncher's chance away. They call him Iron Mike for a reason.
Yeah.
Because he hits like a Mack truck, and he's built like a physical specimen. And I think when he does connect, he puts guys' lights out. So for me, I'm super excited about this. I don't know which way to go. And then to kind of discredit Chandler, I think that would be ill-advised. And I think there's a great opportunity. He just needs one. Just needs one shot.
I think that's over. I mean, Gosh, so hard to disagree with the champ, but that's oversimplifying it. Michael Chandler has more than just a puncher's chance, my friend. And the reality is this. Dustin Poirier and the work that he's put on paper is why we hold him in such high regard. But the reality is, Michael Chandler's only been here for four fights. He said, I'm not here for a long time, but I'm here for a good time. He told it to my boy Anik in Abu Dhabi the first time, and he has shown that. And through those performances, it's allowed for him to get bigger and bigger opportunities. Islam Makhachev becoming the champion was a massive change in the division, and it makes the fight have more stakes. But ultimately, it's the third fight from the top for the reason that it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
These dudes are going to put on an absolute barn burner on Saturday night.
Total rounds over under 1.5, juice to the over -130. So it seems like a lot of people are expectant that we're going to get a quick and an entertaining fight there in the featured bout at 155 pounds. And first appearance, by the way, of 2022 for Dustin Poirier. Said he was grateful for 2021 in terms of the bank account, but he needed a vacation and he got it. All right, co-headliner here. This is a fascinating fight, and this, I think, was as animated as we got in our pre-show meeting before we came out to do the betting preview. So Carla Esparza, first title defense of this second reign as champion, plus 270. The underdog, Zhang Weili, is minus 325. Total rounds, over under 4.5, slightly juiced to the under now at this point, about minus 120 on DraftKings Sportsbook. A lot of us were expectant that Zhang Weili was going to be a big favorite in this setting, and she certainly is that.
Not this big, though. I didn't expect it to be this big. I knew that she would be favored because when you look at Zhang Weili and you look at Carla Esparza, the way the fights play out is so different, right? Carla's a bit of a grinder, whereas Weili has the ability to explode. We saw the Ioana and Jacek knockout, and that is what propelled her into the title fight. But it's the athleticism of Zhang Weili that presents a lot of people problems. And I've been on record, John, as saying she's the greatest athlete ever. You know, I said that. Sometimes I talk so much and I might say some crazy stuff. But I said she's the greatest athlete ever, meaning she, to me, is the greatest female athlete in the UFC because I feel like wherever we put her, whatever avenue we ask her to compete in, she will do well. And I think that is where people envision the problem starting for Carla Esparza because the speed could present a problem for her, Holly.
I think Carla Esparza she definitely plays it safe, trying to neutralize fights, and I think that as far as a well-rounded fighter, I give it to Weili because she does kind of impose her will rather than just trying to neutralize. I feel like she's going to go in very strong, very aggressive, but calculated. You know, not just throwing wild punches. So I do think a lot of respect to Carla. She's been able to stay here and be in the rankings this long and become champ again. So take nothing away from her, but I think that Weili just has more tools in her.
Diplomatically, but it sounds like Holly Holm is leaning toward Zhang Weili. Now, if you're a 4-year collegiate scholarship wrestler like Carla Esparza is, that's going to do a lot in the eyes of Aljamain Sterling. We were talking before the fight. You see decided wrestling and grappling advantages for Carla Esparza. It's weird, though, to have a favorite this big and to have the total on the rounds be 4.5 minus 115. What type of fight are you expecting, champ?
I'm expecting Weili to think that she's going to just get Carla Esparza out of there and reclaim her title. But I really don't think it's going to be that easy. Anyone who's a wrestler who wrestled in college for 4 years, that is a tough individual mentally, physically, and spiritually, I think. And I think she's in a good place. She didn't rush back into a title defense. I think she gave herself time to kind of just
got married
decompress, got married, living the dream a little bit. And I think for her to get back to this opportunity to even reclaim the title, that's very, very hard to do over someone as dominant or as skilled as Rose Namajunas. I think that speaks volumes. So I just can't see. Listen, man, I just can't see.
You didn't watch that fight.
Listen. I just can't. Hey, I try to find the silver linings in all these fights, guys. But I just can't see her just steamrolling her. I think she might think she could do that, but when you have a wrestler, that grind, that mental toughness, she's not going to let herself get bullied. And I think she's grown since the beginning when she first won the title to now where she is, which she beat Marina Rodriguez. She beat Zhao Nan. I mean, those are some fascinating strikers that are very talented. I don't think this is going to be much different.
I think the biggest surprise for me, J.A., is normally when you get the wrestler versus the striker, the wrestler's the one that's the favorite. So to see Zhang Weili have a clear disadvantage in that area, something Carla relies on so heavily, be favored by that much is very surprising for me.
Well, it's because talking heads like you say that man or woman, she's the greatest professional
Of all time, son. Of all time,
regardless
son.
of sports.
Hey, what was that word y'all like to use? Hyperbole. Is that hyperbole, John?
Promotional hyperbole. Our director of race and sportsbook operations, Johnny Avello, could not be with us today, but he does tell us more than 90% of the bets have come in on under 4.5 rounds, but not a huge handle, so the price is kind of holding steady. I'm very interested to see where those betting numbers are going to close because I do believe Zhang Weili deserves this distinction at minus 325 or higher, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
All right. We have saved some time for this epic main event. Israel Adesanya making another middleweight title defense here, and it comes against Alex Pereira, who is only 6-1 in mixed martial arts, just cutting his teeth here in the UFC, but some obvious history between these two men. They met twice in the kickboxing realm, 2016, 2017. There's a lot of meat on the bone there, but both of those meetings went to Pereira in a different sport. Do you factor that into your handicap at all? I mean, that looks like old footage to me. I don't even recognize that.
I have to. I think you have to take into effect the interactions before. You can't just ignore that. These guys fought. Regardless of what happened, regardless of the size of the gloves or the ring, the arena, you got to say these two fought. They fought twice, and Pereira won both matches. Last one in very impressive fashion. But the reality is, he's in Izzy's yard now. From fight number one, Izzy walked into the octagon. He hypothetically pulled down his pants. He took a leak right on the side of the octagon and said, "This is my yard now." It's what lions do in the jungle. They mark their territory. Adesanya marked his territory, and then he became the UFC champion in a year. You got to factor that in, that experience that Adesanya carries into this fight with Alex Pereira. But the reality is, the ultimate equalizer is that left hand of Pereira, and he can put anybody out, and he's done it to the champion before. So when you fight somebody in a rematch, the question becomes, how much does that factor into the preparation if you're Israel Adesanya?
So do you think we'll see some grappling, Holly? I mean, it seems like prevailing wisdom is that it's going to be a kickboxing match with a cage and smaller gloves, but that it's going to be a striker's delight.
Well, I think these camps both know that, right? So they're probably thinking of ways that they can kind of use other skills, but it might just be a kickboxing match inside the octagon.
Aljo, Glover Teixeira, right, is the one who is charged with training Alex Pereira, at least as far as the ground game is concerned. And every time DC and I sit with this dude in a fighter meeting, Glover Teixeira, all he wants to do is talk about Pereira's physical strength and how different he feels in the grappling realm. Now, I'm not sitting here suggesting he's going to pursue takedowns, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Pereira might be better in the clinch situations than we expect him to be.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I will say, like, there's no way Izzy's coming into this fight thinking it's just going to be a kickboxing match. Izzy's a smart dude. He does not want to lose his title. He knows what he needs to do. He takes the path of least resistance to win. Even though he might talk a lot and hype these fights up as crazy as he does sometimes and promises these spectacular knockouts, but then he goes in there and does the complete opposite and just does what he needs to do to get by. Yoel Romero, we have the Jared Cannonier fight. I don't think this is going to be any different. I think he's going to... I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I think Izzy's going to take the path of least resistance. He's going to deviate from a kickboxing fight and take him to his game of MMA, which he's more, I think, well-versed in. And I think he's going to use his grappling experience. And I think Pereira's got the grappling edge with defensive grappling, probably from Glover Teixeira, but I think Izzy's going to be a little bit better in the offensive realm. And we'll see Alex Pereira when he's actually taken down and on his back. Because I don't think Izzy's going to stand there with that ultimate equalizer of that lefty, that old faithful lefty, because that might give some flashbacks. I know I had flashbacks from my knockout loss after that knee, and I had some other people try to throw knees at me. I was like, not again. This is not happening again. So I can see Izzy trying to be like smart, calculated, taking his time, picking his shots, and I think when he can engage, clinch him up, take him down, he's going to look to do that.
If I read into DC's comments, Holly, it seems to me like he thinks experience is going to be a big factor in this fight. And Chael Sonnen and others have wondered aloud, if Alex Pereira had to fight the Robert Whittakers of the world, right, to get to this point, how would he fare? I know you came into the UFC with a lot of combat sports experience, but how do you handicap the discrepancy in experience between these two athletes in MMA?
I definitely think that Adesanya does have a lot going for him, being that he has more experience in being the champion. That gives you confidence. He's been in situations where he has had to deal with it, and I think that carries a lot of weight. But somebody else coming in also, they can come in and just they're prepared. You never know what they're doing behind the scenes. I think Adesanya is he's calculated,
There's no
and
doubt.
he sticks to his game plan too. He doesn't let a lot of the talk and a lot of the hype really, when he gets in there, he actually stays pretty focused. And I think that's really hard to beat a very focused fighter like that.
We have seen some money come in on Israel Adesanya. He was minus 180 or so, now minus 205. Alex Pereira plus 175. Over 4.5 rounds, minus 140. Under 4.5 rounds is plus 110. All right, so our producers kind of like to get us in trouble. And I know Aljo's trying to make friends at times here, not so much. But basically, they have charged us with coming up with a same-game parlay for this main event between Pereira and Adesanya. So we each have come up with a proposition. We're going to throw those together in a same-game parlay, and we're going to tell you that it pays out at about plus 900. So I'm going to start. And mine's a little chalky, minus 180, but I believe Israel Adesanya will land more than 75 significant strikes in this fight. I am expecting a long fight. I know it's a big number. Seems like the champ disagrees.
He said significant.
Right,
that's a lot of fights that matter. That's a lot of punches that matter without jabs being counted.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll go over. You have something on the takedown front for
Yeah,
me,
I do.
sir.
I do. Because the reality is this, I don't know how the fight gets to the ground. So we speak about the grappling and the advantages that Izzy holds in the grappling, but how does the fight get to the ground? Who's going to take the other down? So my bet is, does Adesanya score more than one takedown? Because if he's a better grappler, he still got to get it there. And if Pereira is defending takedowns from Glover Teixeira, what says he can't defend takedowns from Israel Adesanya? That is why I say one takedown only for the champion.
And Adesanya to have more takedowns than Alex Pereira, plus 360 is a big number there.
It's a good one.
All right, Holly, what do you think? What do you have for us in the main event?
I'm saying that this fight goes over 3.5 rounds. We're going to at least see 3.5 rounds.
So that's minus 180. And when
Yeah.
our producer said to Holly, what about over 4.5? She paused. She wanted the 3.5. So
Yeah.
perhaps we get a late finish according to the all-time great Holly Holm. All right, Aljo, what do you have for us on the main event to close out the same game parlay?
So for my odds, I got that there's going to be at least 2 or more knockdowns in this fight.
Ooh.
And the reason I go with this is because you got the power punching, the old faithful lefty of Alex Pereira. And then you got Izzy, who's a very good and dangerous counter striker. And we've seen this time and time again,
Yeah.
how he caught Robert Whittaker going backwards, leaning back, connection. Just drops the guy. You know, so I can see this happening on both fronts. I don't know who's going to get more knockdowns, but I think there's going to be at least 2
I
or more.
hope, man. I sure hope there's going to be 2 knockdowns.
All right, so that's plus 125 for Aljo, and it rounds it out, plus 900 for the same game parlay. You look pretty good in the quarter zip today. Can I add that?
Yeah, you know, I look like a certain coach, but I can't really say it on air, you know.
Yeah.
I'm out here looking real good, you know.
look good. You look
I look real good. I zip mine too. Look at Aljo, you know. He like to show his chest. 'Cause he got that little bird chest. I'm a man. You know? He got that little bird chest,
Bird chest
135.
with
You got a little, I mean, look at me, man. I'm a man. That's a man's body right there. That's a little boy. He a little boy, you know.
Come on,
take
man.
that?
Come on.
Who is jumping?
Come on, man.
Wow.
I've been in the gym. I've been in the gym a
Ooh, you
little
look
bit.
strong too, like the Jamaican
Speaking
sensation.
of jumping, we got to jump on out of here, but I would strongly recommend you go into the DraftKings Sportsbook this weekend and get in on the action for UFC 281. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code NYC. Bet $5 on any UFC 281 fighter to win before the start of the main card and get an additional $200 in free bets. If your bet wins, that is code NYC this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC.
How good is this guy? How good is this dude?
Thank you all for indulging us for the UFC 281 betting preview show. For Daniel Cormier, Holly Holm, and Aljamain Sterling, I'm Jon Anik saying so long for now. We will see you live on pay-per-view Saturday night for the big one that is UFC 281. Until then, yo later.